relationships. Hello, Mother.
Hello, daughter dear.
So we were just talking about relationships, and I was just discussing how, sometimes I find myself saying stuff like, "Oh, I don't need them," or "Forget them." And now that I'm older, like I'm coming to realize, like, that's not right. Like you need people, like you really need people, and just how important just having like relationships with other people, not just like romantic relationships, just like relationships in general, like your mother, father, family, friends, your child, and just how important relationships are. I feel like you really do need people, and God put us on this earth, just to love one another.
Yes.
But so I feel like I'm getting better, as far as relationships, but I've saw you handle relationships throughout my life, like with so much grace, like with your crazy family.
And you're a crazy family too.
Yes, they're my family too, I guess. Yes. But yes, I've saw you handle relationships with so much grace, and I just like really admire that about you. So I just like wanted your take, or your opinion on relationships and how you handle relationships.
And thank you so much, daughter dear, for saying you saw me handle relationships well. I can tell you that I mishandled a lot of relationships. I wish I could have a do-over, but you learn and you try to do better, Just for me, I personally try to handle relationships now at this point in my life. At 50 years old, I now get it. I try to handle relationships, the way I see Christ all throughout Scripture handle relationships. I see him broken. I see him humble. I see him, sacrificing. And so relationships are really just that. It is, learning to love people where they are and accepting them. And then, doing the best you can to enjoy them, in the midst of whoever they are, taking advantage of the time that God gives you with them to enjoy, the relationships. They're not always easy.
At all.
At all, they're very hard relationships. They're hard. There's no way around it. And I say, because you're trying to be in a relationship, whether it's like you said, a romantic relationship, whether it's with a friend or even children, we're not always at our best in our relationship. We're not always perfectly, getting along, but we try our best, I think, to, accept one another at this point. Of course, as a mother, when you guys were growing up, there are certain things I desired from you guys or whatever, but I had to accept you guys for who you were as individuals. And I think every relationship needs acceptance. Every relationship, you have to accept the people for who they are. And they have to accept you. How about that?
Yes.
How
exactly,
about
yes.
we are not perfect? We're selfish and want
We
our
don't think
own
about
way.
that.
We don't. We just think about other people
Yes.
in relationships and how they look in our eyes. How about how
They
we
gotta
look?
accept us.
Yes.
Our ways, our crazy
Yes.
ways.
Yes. How do we
Yes.
look in their eyes? And
Yes.
so you learn that. You learn that everybody has a flaw somewhere.
Yes.
And there's always two sides to every story. And so we learn that we're not Jesus, like I said. I'm not Jesus, so I'm not going to be perfect in a relationship. And so how could I possibly expect you to be perfect in the relationship when I come with my own baggage? And believe it or not, especially as a young wife, I had no idea of all the baggage that I was carrying. I may have saw my husband's baggage, but I had no idea of all the stuff I brought into that relationship, and so as God shines the light and you begin to just see, oh my gosh, I'm a hot mess.
Yes.
And I think knowing that and how I'm looking in the sight of God, and how the only thing I'm doing is walking in his grace, it makes me have a little more understanding
Mm-hmm.
of the other people, in all of my relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So relationships are intentional. You want to make sure you want to ask God to give you the strength to model Him,
Mm-hmm.
in your relationships, and loving one another as He has loved us. He gave up Himself for us and for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what relationships are about.
Thank you.
You're
And I have
welcome.
one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's like a lot of talk about like cutting people off.
Mhm.
And I understand like
Mhm.
sometimes I feel like enough is enough.
Yes. Yes.
So how would you like? What is your opinion on like cutting people off?
Get right to the point. Cut 'em
Yeah.
off, right?
Yes.
Well, no, I would say Scripture talks about loving one another as I have loved you, and then it says love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if I don't, when it gets to the point I have no more strength,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm taking something from me for this relationship, then I think that's when I need to cut you off. But as long as God has given me the strength to love you past where you are,
Mm-hmm.
because what I found in a lot of relationships, especially some of the ones that I wanted to cut off, is eventually when they do get to a place that they're ready to, really, be whoever, God has called them to be in the relationship. Sometimes you want to be around to get that, because sometimes you've invested so much into a relationship. In all honesty,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have invested so much into a relationship, and I'm not just talking about, again, romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying whether it's friendships, because sometimes wherever the next friend you have, they're going to have issues, you're going to have issues.
Mm-hmm.
So it's how can I, if it's a true friend,
Mm-hmm.
if it's a true relationship that's worth it and you've invested into it, then I think you give it your best until you have nothing left to give. And then you have to go and see about yourself and get yourself whole and healthy. And they may not fit. They may not fit.
Well, I'm not there yet,
Mhm.
but thank you. Like,
Yes.
I
Yes.
receive it. I'm
Yes,
still trying.
ma'am.
I'm still trying to get there.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I think you're doing a wonderful
Yeah.
job,
Sometimes
daughter.
I still cut people off though.
Yes. That's okay. That's okay. You're learning, and you're learning your own boundaries, because
Mhm.
everybody has different boundaries.
Yes.
I started off with very small boundaries.
Mhm.
You had to be this or you had to be that. Now, as God is showing me more about myself with all of my inadequacies, I can
Mhm.
see I have more room for other people and their inadequacies.
Yes.
So, yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome,
you for that.
daughter.
I love
You're
you.
welcome. Love you more.